we go. Datto raid guide for Salvation's Edge. Let him cook.
10 years of build up for this, and the wait was pretty worth it. Let's go over how to take down the Witness in Salvation's Edge. Before we begin, note that normal mode raids now have surges attached to them.
Why?
And you should try to match your damage with that of the surges to make the raid easier. The first encounter is a non-boss encounter to teach you about the resonance mechanic. The goal here is to pour as much resonance into a chest in the middle of the room to unlock the exit. Team composition should focus on ad clear builds, as this entire encounter is purely about killing things as fast as possible so that others on the team can progress.
Enemy density is
crazy. You will want weapons that are good at killing tormentors and subjugators, bring some amount of precision damage and or divinity if you think you need it. Hunter Golden Guns and Nighthawks, in addition to the Still Hunt Sniper, have been amazing for the entire raid. Burst supers work great, but also roaming supers work for other parts of the encounter. In terms of weaponry, bring your best ad-clearing weapons. Kvostov was doing some serious work in this place as a new example.
That Tormentor
to start the fight, you'll want to split your group into 2 teams of 3. Call them whatever you want, but Team 1 will always go through the left side doorway and Team 2 will always go to the right. And I will explain what that means. When the encounter starts, 2 of the doors in the main room that you're in will open, and some supplicant harpies will fly out of these newly accessible rooms. The rooms will always be right next to each other, left and right, although maybe not that directly, like one door might be at floor level and then another one's downstairs or up high on a ledge or something like that.
True.
Either way, make your way into these rooms and start slaying out and progressing in the direction of your team's main direction. So left team is going to keep going left, right team keeps going right. Eventually, you...
That's a great point.
Won't be able to progress until the opposite team kills a Hydra called Keeper of the Monolith, which stops the next door from opening. Be aware that the nearest Hydra may be behind you if you're wondering why nothing is happening.
Did he make an exit door joke from an airplane stewardess speech there?
Eventually, after a couple of rooms, you will encounter an Overload Minotaur. Killing this Minotaur triggers a Tormentor in the main room and will despawn any other Overload Minotaurs. Don't worry about the despawn, it's just the first one to die that actually matters.
Yes.
The doors to the center will open and everyone should go to the center because 2 new doors will open later, left and right, and you should go into these rooms to continue the process. You'll do the same thing, Hydras, Minotaurs, Tormentor spawn, the whole thing. After the second Tormentor is when the main mechanic takes place.
Yes.
Go back to the rooms you came from after the doors open for the second time. In 2 of the rooms, you will have 1 plate that is glowing, ready to be activated, and another room with a conductor totem that has been opened up.
The plate that's glowing is the one where the Minotaur died. You can remember that.
Looks like this. The goal here is to step on the
That is the Dorito pillar
plates to ping pong a charge back and forth between the 2 plates to spawn resonance, to then pick that up and then place in the center room after both conductors have been fully activated. I just said a lot of things, so let's break that down.
What did he say?
Also,
I blacked
my
out.
team called them conduits, so if you ever hear me use the word conduit versus conductor, I'm talking about the same thing. First, the ping pong plates. Stepping on the active plate will activate it and send a charge down a path to another plate. This plate will be in the room with the active conductor. The player watching this second plate must wait for the charge from the wire to enter.
And this was tricky because it's like glowing. You're like, step on it. Too soon. Too late. Too what?
The plate. When it enters and lights
Boom!
up.
Now go!
That's when you can step on it. The charge goes back to the first plate and you do the same thing. Step on the plate when it lights up and you bounce this charge back and forth. The timing window is pretty small, only a couple of seconds. If you mess up the very first bounce, nothing happens. But if you mess up at any other point, the plates will deactivate and a subjugator spawns, and you must kill the subjugator before they will activate again. Now let's talk resonance.
Okay.
Resonance will come in the form of a 3D shape type pickup on the ground somewhere in the rooms with the ping pong plates. As you charge the plates over and over, more of this resonance will spawn in the room. You can hold a maximum of 3 resonance, pick up any more, and you will die instantly. The plate players need to be scooping resonance in between plate activations. Note that the third player in each team, the one not doing the plates, should help with ad clear and should also go to the center room to pick up resonance, as some will spawn there as well. As soon as both players have 3 stacks of resonance, it's time to power the conductor. This conductor can be activated technically at any time, but doing so will remove 1 stack of resonance, not that big of a deal, but will despawn all other resonance attached to that conductor that
So you better pick up the middle ones first, or else you're running out of resonance.
have not been picked up. So you only want to activate the conductor when you're truly ready or truly desperate. To bring the conductor to life, all you need to do is shoot it a couple of times and then finish a plate cycle on the plate that is in the same room as the conductor. So, in this example, I send the charge back to the previous room, I pick up 3 resonance, shoot the conductor, and then hit my plate again,
Activated.
which charges the conductor. If you
Now, you can tell it's activated because these little triangles right here, these little chevrons are lit up. Before you shoot it, they're not lit up. These little things right here, now they're lit up.
shoot the conductor after stepping on your plate, you will need to wait a full cycle before the conductor is fully charged. Do not leave early. Wait for the activation and sound cue. It'll be very obvious when you've done it right. Something to note is that conductors have a little 3D object in the middle where you need to shoot. In this first stage, it's
Not lit.
literally impossible to mess it up, but to finish charging the conductor, the person who steps on the final plate must have a resonance shape that matches the object in the middle of the conductor. So, I have pyramidal resonance. I see
Which doesn't matter here because it's only pyramidal. Later encounters where they add spherical and hexagonological.
a pyramid in the conductor, I step on the plate, we're good. If I had a different shape and I shot and then stepped on the plate, I would die and it wouldn't
Not
charge.
lit, not lit, not
Not
lit.
super important for
Lit.
now, but it'll get more important later on. Anyway, after both teams do that successfully, you will have a subjugator spawn in the mid, and it's dead. At this point, you'll wait around for a chest in the middle of the room to
Man, non-contest mode is wacky. We would like, pop supers, bring out the big gun. Oh, he's dead. Oh, it's not oh, he's dead.
spawn so that you can deposit your resonance to build the timer back at the top of the screen. I should probably mention that you only have so much time to do 1 cycle of this encounter. That'll be a running theme in the entire raid.
Do we know, maybe he'll say, how do you finish this encounter? Is it just 3 chests? Fill up 3 chests? Is there like a total amount of resonance? Because it seems like always 3 phases.
Be aware of the pyramid-shaped AoE that the witness will constantly be placing around the room. It doesn't do anything right now but damage you, but that's foreshadowing for what's to come. As long as everyone has 2 or 3 resonance, you should be able to build your timer back up to the maximum amount of time that this encounter allows, and you just repeat this process 2 more times to complete the fight. The Herald of Finality is encounter number 2, which
So, yeah, he never mentioned how many dunks are needed. I think it's just 3 rotations. And if you don't do enough resonance, you can't do three rotations because you run out of time to even do it, potentially. But I think as long as you... what if you just dunked 1 resonance in the 3rd chest? Would that clear it? There's got to be some minimum number to complete it, but we don't know what it is.
that's foreshadowing for what's
40,
to come.
45.
As long as everyone has 2 or 3 resonance, you should be able to build your timer back up to the maximum amount of time. The Herald of Finality is encounter number 2, which takes a lot of the components from the previous encounter and integrates them into an actual boss encounter. Team composition can remain mostly the same as the first, but it'll be helpful to have some healing during the damage phase, like a Well of Radiance.
Violet!
Yes, even the nerfed version, in addition to something like Sever to reduce the amount of damage the boss will do to you, as this boss is quite mobile and aggressive. That being said, My team used swords for this encounter. Other teams have used Acreus as well, but swords are quite simple to use, although Episode 1's artifact is quite sword-heavy in its perks. The new Ergo Sum sword with Wolfpack rounds, which, yes, is a real thing, should be used as well if your team has one. After the artifact is gone, you'll probably rotate over to the Lament or Legend of Acreus if you haven't done so already, although you could probably do any popular damage strategy with a Well of Radiance somewhere. Any sort of power ammo generators should be utilized as well here. Aeons, Cenotaph, you'll get some use out of them. I actually ended up using Heart Shadow for a time as a way to weaken the boss while still being able to deal decent sword damage. You could also use Tractor Cannon to debuff, that's fine too, and Burst Supers are going to be very good. The goal here is actually quite similar to the first encounter. Charge 3 conductors to spawn a chest in the arena to dump your resonance into, so you can buy more time in the encounter to kill the boss. How you do it is also quite similar, bouncing charges between the plates. But there's a little more added on this time.
Dang, look at
Split
that
your team into groups of 2, left, middle, and right. I will say that the right side is the easiest side, the middle is the next hardest, and the left side the most difficult, so assign people accordingly. The reason the sides are more difficult is because they aren't all physically the same. The left side has considerably more platforming to deal with, which can make getting resonance much harder. We'll get to that soon. The fight starts by shooting the Blight in the middle of the room. Each of the 3 sides will get a couple of waves of enemies to kill, a knight and some attendants, aka the stasis dudes, followed by another wave of them in addition to an ogre if you're on the right side, a phalanx in the middle, and a wizard on the left.
Phalanx sucks.
These are your Aeons and Cenotaph targets, by the way. Shortly after, 3 people, typically 1 from each side, in fact, I think that's every time, will be called to battle, aka Call of Reckoning.
Now, if you're running like a 3-3 strat and do middle last, it's like randomly assigns 2 people on one side. But yeah, if you're split up 2-2-2, 1 each side.
The way this works is that these 3 players must enter the square arena with the boss in it and shoot him in the head a lot. Blights will spawn around the room, which need to be destroyed, otherwise you can't damage the boss. They'll either be in the middle arena or up high on the left and right sides. I think stepping out of the arena after stepping into it will cause delays in finishing this part of the encounter. So if you do enter, do not leave until it is complete.
Yeah, sometimes it's like you kill the blights really fast and the little blight indicator above his head doesn't go away. But there's always one in the center, and then one of the side, 2 of the sides get one. One of the sides will not have one, but always one in the center.
On normal mode, staying alive isn't a big deal, but people should have a healing grenade ready, or even the new healing auto rifle, which I think is really good and fun to use. After doing enough damage, you'll hear a ringing noise signaling that you are done, and your buff will change to Stolen Favor. The other half of the fight is more ping-ponging of plates, collecting resonance, the same deal as the first encounter. However, this time, shooting the conductor with the right symbol actually matters. Remember that shape that we saw?
I thought anyone could shoot the symbol regardless of your buff. It only mattered who stepped on the plate. Had to have the right buff.
On the conductor in the first encounter? Well, now you can only see that shape if you have Stolen Favor, so teams need to call out what shape is in the conductor to make sure you finish the plate sequence with the right resonance, because now there's 2 shapes, spheres and pyramids. You can pick up any combination of resonance, but the limit is still 3. So if you pick up a sphere first, you're gonna have sphere X1. Then if you grab a pyramid, your resonance will switch to pyramid, but now you're at X2. So if you're in charge of shooting the conductor, you need to ensure that the final resonance you pick up is the one that matches the conductor, and that the person who steps on the plate to charge the conductor also needs to have the same resonance as the conductor.
Okay, so no, when you shoot it, the buff doesn't matter. You could be either. Stepping on is the only one that matters.
One kind of resonance will spawn on one side in your respective...
I'm like 99.9% sure.
...area, and then the other on the other. Remember that locking your conductor despawns all resonance. So you can't just lock right away and then go get it later. In fact, you're going to do the opposite, which I'll talk about in a moment. There are two different ways of handling this encounter. Call of Reckoning first and Plates second, or Plates first and Call of Reckoning second. Some teams prefer one way, other teams might prefer another. Just pick one that works for you. I think some teams have maybe been skewing more towards Plates first, but I'm not really too sure. The footage that I have is of Plates second before I've really gotten to refine the Plates first strategy. An easier way to handle picking up resonance is to intentionally fail stepping on the plate after spawning a bunch of resonance. The resonance doesn't disappear on a failure, only after charging the totem. The penalty for failure is that a slightly tougher enemy spawns, but it's a small price to pay for being able to have a bunch more time to pick up resonance, especially on the left side, which has a ton of platforming.
Yeah, we used get stolen favor after Plates strat, and that was a lot more consistent, though the time is a little tighter. You don't have to deal with ads. The ads don't spawn when you're getting resonance if you don't get stolen favor. So you could just hang out, bounce the charge back and forth with 0 ads, get ×3 on everybody, and then let it fail, kill the yellow bar, close it, go dunk max. It takes a little bit more time, but you're maxed out every time with no deaths to the ads because they just don't spawn.
So you ping pong a few times, spawn a bunch of resonance, intentionally fail, kill the enemy that spawns, then both players scoop resonance, reactivate the plate, and fully charge the conductor. If you do Plates first, you will need to get stolen favor before you can complete the final step of that sequence. I don't intentionally fail in the footage that you're watching. Do as I say, not as I do. Part of the difficulty here is dealing with the attendants that spawn in. They are the most deceiving enemy in the final shape because while they look like Scions, they can absolutely destroy you if left alone. They deal a ton of damage. They also spawn in different configurations, 2 and 2, all 4
all
of them,
over the place.
Spawning on left, spawning
so
on the
annoying.
stairs, spawning on the right. They're
Freeze
all
you.
over the place.
Pull you.
That
Slap
and they're
you
throwing
around.
stasis AoE at you, which slows you, which can prevent you from getting to the plate on time. Take them seriously. A wave frame grenade launcher did wonders for me on day 1 in contest mode because it killed them in one shot. It should also be doing the same here. Other than that, it's the same. Ping pong the plates, create resonance, charge the conductor. Once you have both parts of the encounter done, and every side has them all done, head to the main stage, and in the back will be a chest to dump your resonance in to buy some time. Just be careful putting in the resonance. There's a damaging AoE right
Titan
next
wall.
to the chest, and you will just die.
Yeah,
of that if you're
Titans
waiting
have a
around not paying
purpose.
attention. Also, try to let the buffers and the debuffers dunk first so that they can set up wells and wards and tractor cannon and whatever else they gotta do. Then you just wail on the boss with swords or the Acreus or whatever you're using. Drop a well, hit the boss with Sever if you want, and go nuts. Something that I haven't tested but might be pretty neat is the new Warlock helmet that makes a healing turret out of a healing grenade. But I think you'd probably just have Well of Radiance at that point, so I don't know. Either way, if you dunked enough resonance, you should fully reset your timer, and you just repeat this process 2 more times until you kill the boss or the boss kills you. It's actually a pretty straightforward fight. It's mainly the execution of it that is the hard part, making sure you stack enough resonance, the right people shooting the right conductors, all that kind of stuff.
I was like, how is this sword doing 60k a hit? And I was like, oh, that's right. It's off contest now. Because on contest, I had the exact same sword, exact same setup. I was doing 22k. Contest sucks.
Stand shouldn't be a big deal as long as you have some amount of ammo to your name. The arena will spawn the 3 big enemies you've been dealing with, but they shouldn't be a hassle. Just burn the boss and you should be fine. It's pretty forgiving.
Titans are fine. It's just this raid has a boss really far away, at the final boss really far away, and they just released this super strong Hunter Celestial Nighthawk Golden Gun thing that's like 300% too strong, and so Titans are fine.
Encounter 3 is kind of a gimme encounter. It continues to use the plate mechanic, but now adds a 3rd plate and a 3rd resonance shape. Team composition should be focused on slaying ads, similar to Encounter 1. You will also have many Tormentors to deal with and potentially Subjugators as well, so anything to easily deal with those enemies will also be quite helpful. Precision damage, divinity, whatever. The goal here is the same as Encounter 1. Dump Resonance into the chest in the middle to buy time to complete the encounter. It's just that you're now dealing with a third shape and the difficulties of everyone trying to manage their own plates and resonance. The fight starts with 3 Tormentors and a lot of ads. Try to focus fire each Tormentor down one at a time as a team instead of splitting into different groups, unless you happen to have a lot of Nighthawk Hunters to just insta-gib all of the Tormentors. Whoever gets the final blow on the Tormentor gets the Stolen Favor buff, and the buff works the exact same as the previous encounter. Only people with Stolen Favor can see the shape of the resonance you need to activate the conductor, so be sure to call that out, type it out, whatever you gotta do. After all of the Tormentors go down, Cabal turrets will spawn on high up platforms, kill them immediately, then it's time to go back to plates for more ping pong. In this first room, things are not too complicated. Teams should start pinging their plates and collecting resonance as they're able to. The use of an intentional failure of the plate, like in the previous encounter, is likely something you will want to explore, and that's mainly because resonance doesn't spawn very cleanly in the arena. Players will have to roam around to find the resonance they need, and eventually you will need to travel far enough away from your plate that it'll be basically impossible to get back in time to keep the plates active.
I would say have one team set up to fail so that they don't disappear, and then go around and collect.
On normal mode, the Subjugators are not that big of a threat, so feel free to just intentionally fail and go get resonance. After everyone gathers their resonance, whether it's to activate a conductor or just to have 3 to dunk into the chest, reactivate the plates and charge the conductors.
But yeah, I guess if only one team fails, then the teams that didn't fail, no, they can still collect resonance, yeah.
Ideally, you will have 3 people assigned to the back of the room, left, middle, and right, and then 3 people assigned up front. The people up front should also be ideally the ones killing the Tormentors so that they can see where the proper resonance conductors are for the resonance that they are collecting. This is a very flexible encounter, so however you want to arrange people is totally fine. The only thing to remember is that once you light a conductor, once it's charged up, it will despawn all of the resonance that it was creating, which is why the intentional failure is kind of important.
I thought only when all 3 were closed. Right?
After charging all 3, more turrets are going to show up, in addition to the chest to deposit resonance. Finally, you'll have an unstoppable champion spawn in somewhat near the door. It needs to be killed to proceed to the next stage of the fight. The next 2 stages play the exact same way, except you're...
Whatever one is closed, it spawns resonance it created. Okay. Yeah, I guess I misremembered that. So once one closes, it removes its resonance. Okay.
You're in different rooms, and the pathing of the plates gets a little mixed up.
Yeah, I remember
In the first room, the path the back left plate took to get to its connected plate stayed on the left, middle stayed in the middle, and then right stayed on the right. In the second room, the right stays on the right, but the left side plate ends in the middle, and the middle plate ends up on the left. Assign people however you want up front, but ideally the people in the back stay on the same...
This is getting complicated, dude. Look, oh, this is... Holy God, it can't get more complicated than this, can it?
Assign people however you want up front, but ideally the people in the back stay on the same plates just to create some consistency in the encounter. The third room is the same deal, except now the left plate goes to the middle, the middle goes to the right, and the right goes to the left. Otherwise, it plays out the exact same way. Get resonance, charge the conductors, you know the drill. Complete all 3 stages to move to Encounter 4, which has completely different mechanics to the rest of the raid. Encounter 4, aka
the best mechanics in an encounter ever in the lifetime of Destiny. Here we go. Let's go. I even made a little prototype here last night. We didn't talk about the first encounter either. We numbered these rooms like a clock in the first encounter. but it should have been north, south, east, west, northeast, southwest, etc. But yeah, I made a prototype of the encounter so we can move shapes around. I want to see I want to see how Datto's brains. He's got to have multiple brains. How his brains work versus my stupid brain. So let's see. Let's see. Let him cook.
Finality is basically the Vault 2.0, the Vault encounter from Last Wish. It is mostly a puzzle fight with not a lot of significant combat outside of some unstoppable ogres.
Yeah, there's some yellow bars.
Therefore, your loadout nor your team composition does not really matter that much. But what is important is your fashion and your ghost shell
Fashion
selection.
matters.
I know that sounds like parody, but it's very true for reasons I'll explain. Also, much like the Vault in Last Wish, this encounter is going to be somewhat confusing, arguably even more confusing to some than the Vault.
Look how long the chapter is for tier 1 or encounter 1. Okay, there's the chapter. Encounter 2. Okay, encounter 3. Encounter 4. How long is this? This is 20 minutes long. Final boss is like less than 15.
So I'll do my best to explain it. This fight has your team broken up into 2 different groups. Group 1 consists of 3 players, each placed in their own rooms, which I'm calling the Shadow Realm, and then the remaining 3 players all in the same room together, which I'm calling the Normal Realm, trying to bring the Shadow Realm players back.
Okay, I call it alone or inside. So shadow, alone, inside is the people who get teleported. And then outside, yeah.
For the players in the Shadow Realm, aka the solos, your job is to prepare yourself and your other trapped teammates by coordinating shapes. Let's talk about the layout of the room. When you spawn in, you'll see every player in the team as a statue. This will be important for a later part of the fight. Then,
so these are the players in the game, and this is how they look. Like, this is Violet with her little bun hat, Datto with the big shoulders. And if you change your look and you reset, it'll change.
Progressing forward, you'll see 3 more statues, also of your characters. On the front wall, you'll see a rotating cycle of shapes: triangle, circle, square. The room is the same for everyone, regardless of what team you're on, except if you're in the Shadow Realm, the first half of the room, the spawn side, will be blocked off by a glass wall until you are freed. Let's talk
So when you're teleported, you have your own copy of the 3 statues, left, mid, right, that perfectly copies the outside statues, left, mid, right. Of the 3, these are the 3 players who got teleported. They look like the 3 players who got teleported. You are one of them who got teleported. And inside, you can't leave because this glass portal blocks you until you and your statue have all 3 2D shapes. That's the whole goal of this encounter, is you and your statue have all 3 2D shapes. That's it. That's all you got to do. Easy.
Shadow Realm first. The 3 players teleported to the Shadow Realm will each have a statue of themselves, along with them holding some kind of a shape: triangle, circle, or square. A call out must be made saying which shapes are being held where, so that the normal team can do what they need to start doing. So if the shapes are triangle left, circle middle, and square right, you'd relay that information to the team, or just say TCS or something like that. The main mechanic of this encounter in the normal realm is Dissect, where players must reshape 3D objects in a specific way to bring...
So he's outside now, and the shape above the statue isn't a 2D shape, it's a 3D shape.
Bring their teammates back from the Shadow Realm.
See a cylinder.
My team used a strategy that does require an extra step, but helps with the coordination for this next part, as it can be very easy to mess up. The best way to explain this encounter is by using an example and a chart and some very poorly...
Oh, here we go. Let him cook. I better see some Microsoft Paint right here, baby.
Animated Photoshop. So let's do just that. Players 1,
That's a smiley face.
2, and 3 enter the Shadow Realm. Player 1 is on the left. They have a triangle in their hand. Player 2 is middle with a circle. Player 3 is on the right with a square. On the wall in front of each player will have 2 shadows flashing of certain shapes.
So the player who got teleported has 2 shapes on the wall. And player 1 is a triangle. They have a triangle. The shapes they have on the wall is triangle, circle.
These are the shapes currently in their possession.
Inventory.
Let's say player number 1 has a triangle and a circle, player 2 has a circle and a square, and 3 has a square and a triangle.
You need all 3 shapes to go through the portal. So what does player 1 need? They need to get rid of this extra triangle. They need a square.
The first step, which is not actually required but has helped smooth out the process, is to give everyone the shape that they are holding. The triangle player should get all the triangles, the circle player gets all the circles, you get it. So, how do you do that? By killing the knights. When killed, knights will drop a shape that is currently in your possession, aka the shadow symbols on the wall in front of you. So, in our example, the triangle player kills a knight, and the knight can drop either a triangle or a circle. Let's say it drops the triangle, you would just ignore that for now. You kill another knight, and there's your circle. You pass the circle to the circle player by picking it up, just stand next to it and pick it up with your interact button, and then run over to the statue of the player who holds the circle and interact with the statue. Congrats, you have just now passed the circle to the circle player. It's going to show up on their wall, and it'll be removed from your wall. All other players in the Shadow Realm should do the same for their respective shapes. Circle gets all the circles, square gets all the squares. Once all players have their own shapes, Part 2 begins. Remember that this is just an extra step to get organized and that you don't actually need to do it, but for some people it really helps to stay organized. It's also very possible to get really good RNG, and all players simply have their own symbols from the get-go, no work needed, but that's pretty rare and you shouldn't rely on it happening. Also, if you ever happen to pick up the wrong shape, that's okay. Just pick up another shape and deposit it somewhere. It'll get rid of both shapes. This applies everywhere in the encounter to all players. Once all players have their own shapes in the Shadow Realm, it's time to give them away, because what you actually want to progress the fight are the opposite symbols of what your statue says. For example, the triangle player wants a circle and a square, the circle player wants a triangle and a square, and the square player wants a triangle and a circle. So now that each player has 2 of their own shapes, we give them away. Kill a knight, pick up the shape, assuming it's the one that your statue is holding, which the first one should be, and give it to a player. Then kill another knight, pick up the shape that you're holding, give that one to another player. When that's done successfully, all 3 players in the Shadow Realm should have 2 shapes, but neither of them will be the one that your statue is holding. Note that you will get an ogre to spawn in between knight kills. The ogre is just an annoying enemy that's going to kill you, so kill it quickly to continue knight spawns. At some point during this process, usually around the timing of people getting the shapes in between knight kills,
I guess
player
something
wants...
to mention is so this is your inventory of shapes. If you give too many away or someone gives you too many, you can lock yourself from being able to move any of the shapes. So this methodology, once you have 2 of the shapes that are yours, you need to have a methodology where everyone follows the same order, because if you give the shapes away in the wrong way, you can end up with nothing, and then you can't do anything. So player 1 should always go counter, or should go clockwise with his shapes, to player 3 first with his triangle, and then player 2 with his triangle. Player 3 to go player 2 first with his square, player 1 first with his square. Player 2 with the circle should go player 1 first with his circle, and then player 3 with his circle, so that everyone doesn't get overloaded and doesn't run out of shapes. So that method, would not fail, because sometimes someone's going too fast, someone's going too slow, and everyone runs out of shapes. And then what do you need to get through the wall? How do you get through the glass portal? It's as simple as each player needs all 3 2D shapes. That's all you got to do. And I'll use my like encounter prototype in a little bit, and I'll copy his thing. But for now, I'll let him keep cooking.
Have two shapes, but neither of them will be the one that kills the ogres. At some point during this process, usually around the timing of people getting the shapes that they need, the witness will kill everyone in the Shadow Realm.
This is
but
wild.
This is not a true death.
No.
This is a mechanic-driven death and is supposed to happen. You'll be frozen in place and must spectate the people in the normal realm. The people in the normal realm have to pick up the dead player's ghosts and put them back in the statues in the spawn area of the room. This is why your ghost is important. Everyone needs to say what their ghost looks like, so
normal
that way
ghost.
people know who has what ghost, so they can be revived. Note that you
This
can
mechanic is
get
super
around
neat.
having to know this information by having players in the Shadow Realm identify where in the room they are choosing to die, and then just connect their ghost to their positioning.
Yeah.
If someone says that they died on the left side, well, you don't need to know their ghost because you know
It's such
their
a
positioning.
cool, like,
But
little fun thing.
the
where
ghost stuff is a bit more fun.
where like what you're wearing and choosing matters. I don't know. It's neat, but it probably makes LFG absolutely terrible.
Normal realm players pick up the ghosts and head back to the
Pay to win
statues.
mechanic.
But
You need a unique ghost skin. Bungie's cooking.
statues that you need to use are empty. They can't see which player is actually there, but the
Yeah.
dead players can see one person
Coordinate.
via spectate. This is why your fashion is important. The
I thought you could see two. Can't you see two on the death screen? Two statues?
dead players need to call out which player is at which statue location so that their ghost can be placed
Just
in
one?
the correct spot. Call out yellow glowing guardians. Solid ones are already complete. Therefore, having a unique fashion will help you stand out and make you easier to identify. Everyone should get a good look at each other before the fight starts to make this process easier. After callouts
Oh, that was a bug. You can only usually see one. I saw two like multiple times. Okay, got it.
are made and players are revived, you can continue the fight.
Get back to work.
Now back to the Shadow Realm people. You might now have two shapes on your wall that should hopefully be not the ones that your statue is holding. If not, then get to that point.
That's literally this thing right here that you see. See this thing change the background? If you're warped, your inventory of shapes that your knights will drop is this shadow wall thing right here. See how it's changing? And if you only have one, it just sits there and doesn't change. Outside always rotates between all three shapes, circle, square, triangle.
After that's done, you need to kill two knights and pick up both of the shapes that they drop, resulting in a buff named according to which two shapes you've picked up.
He picked up two 2D shapes and then created a 3D shape buff. A cylinder is made of a circle and a square. Did your mind just explode? It's a 3D object.
After you do this, your fate rests with that of the players in the normal realm. Once the normal realm does what they need to do, you'll be able to walk through the glass wall in the middle of the
Through
room
the portal.
and rejoin your team. So, what insanity awaits the normal realm players? The Shadow Realm players mainly deal with two-dimensional shapes: triangle, circle, square. The normal realm players will be dealing with three-dimensional shapes: cone, cylinder, triangular prism, which I'll be referring to as prism for the rest of the guide, sphere, pyramid, and cube. I've been calling the two-dimensional items shapes, and I'll call the three-dimensional items objects, so
Okay. That's fair.
that I'm not calling everything a shape or a symbol. We can keep the terminology. The goal of the normal realm team is to shape a 3D object on each of the three guardian statues that consists of components opposite of that of their statues in the Shadow Realm.
I know what he means, but I know if you haven't done this, you are like, what the did he just say? Can you rewind that? Huh?
Sphere, pyramid, and cube. I've been calling the two-dimensional items everything a shape or is to shape a 3D object on each of the three guardian statues that consists of components opposite of that of their statues in the Shadow Realm.
What?
That sounds like an insane statement. Let's break it down with another example. The first thing you'll want to know is how each 3D object is formed. A sphere in a statue's hands means that the statue contains 2 circles.
True. I like to use my handy dandy little cheat sheet. Cube, 2 squares. Cone, a circle and a triangle. Cylinder, a circle and a square. A sphere, 2 circles. Pyramid, 2 triangles. Prism, square triangle. Huh? Yeah? So I found this on Reddit. So there's the text version of that. Okay, that's just the text version. I gave you the visual.
A cube is 2 squares, a pyramid is 2 triangles. These are easier to remember, but they are also much more annoying to deal with. A cylinder is a square and a circle, or CS. A prism is a triangle and a square, or TS or ST, however you want to organize.
I can't use the letters like that because I have dyslexia, and I just have a not good brain, and I can't do it.
It. And a cone is a triangle and a circle, or TC or CT. Let's use the same callouts from earlier. Triangles left, circles middle, squares right. The Shadow Realm says TCS for triangle left, circle middle, square right. It is now the...
Okay. So inside players, warped players, have called out, because they're the only ones that can see the 2D shape on each statue. So TCS, that means triangle. Outside players can't see this. They don't know. Circle, square. So they type it into the text chat. Now your outside players are going to go to work. And what he said was, build a shape that doesn't have a triangle on player 1. Circle, 2. Build a shape that doesn't have a circle on player 2. Square. Build a shape that doesn't have a square on player 3. And your mechanic is to move 2D shapes from statue to statue.
The goal of the normal realm to create 3D shapes in the left, middle, and right statues that do not contain the shape of the statue in that particular position. So, if triangle is on the left in the Shadow Realm,
I should just let him
the
talk.
shape that the normal realm eventually wants to have needs to not contain a triangle, but should also not contain 2 of the same shape. The only shape that hits those requirements is a cylinder, because a cylinder consists of a square and a circle. We then follow this pattern for the other 2 statues. The middle is a circle, so we want a shape that does not contain a circle nor 2 of the same shape. That means we need a prism, which is a triangle and a square.
All right, dude.
Right statue is a square. We want a shape with no squares, nor 2 of the same shape.
He must have been pretty tired making this raid guide last night and this morning.
So that means we need a cone, which is a circle and a triangle.
Little drums!
Great. So we now know what we need. How do we actually do that? When you start the encounter, each statue will be holding a random 3D object. Most of the time, it will take 4 statue interactions to create the proper swaps, aka 2 dissections. But if you get unlucky and have a sphere, pyramid, and a cube, it's going to take 3, but I'll break that scenario down in a...
So cube, sphere, and pyramid have the same 2D shape, okay? See that? That's super bad because it's holding 2 shapes. That's definitely got to be spread out. So if that happens, you're definitely not done.
In a moment. How does dissect work? Dissect works by killing a knight, just like in the Shadow Realm, and the knight will drop a 2D shape. In the normal realm,
so he's got square or quadrate. See that?
The left knight will always drop a circle, the middle a triangle, and the right a square. You start the dissect process by grabbing a 2D shape and placing it into a statue that has that shape as part of the 3D object it is holding.
So you always have all three 2D shapes on the outside. You can always move them wherever you want. You just got to kill the knight.
You then grab a different shape and place it into a different statue with the same conditions. If those conditions are met, the two statues will swap the 2D shapes that you placed into them, changing the 3D objects they were holding to match the new shapes they now contain. If you ever pick up the wrong shape on accident, again, don't worry, simply pick up another shape, creating a 3D object, and place it into a statue. It'll remove the object from you, but it won't alter the statues at all.
That's a really good tip, because in the chaos of war, you end up like, oh, did I dunk it? Did I not dunk it? What did I pick up? What do I have? Look at your buff. If it's a 3D object, or if it's the wrong 2D object, yeah, pick up a third, pick up a second, make it 3D. If you dunk it, it won't screw anything up, which I did not know.
So let's give an example. Statue 1 is holding a cone, aka triangle and circle, aka TC. Statue 2 is holding a prism, aka triangle and square, aka TS. Statue 3 is holding a cylinder, aka circle and square, aka CS. If I pick up a circle from a knight, I can place it in Statue 1 or Statue 3. Statue 2 literally will not let me, as there is no circle in the...
Yeah, the game will not let you try to take a circle out of a 3D shape that doesn't have a circle. It'll be like, the game will be like, no, you're dumb, you're not doing it right. There's no circle here. You can't take it.
Prism object to trade. I'll place it in Statue 1. Then I'll grab a triangle and place it into Statue 2 because Statue 3's object has no triangles in it, and I can't place two shapes into the same statue at the same time. Once I place the triangle into Statue 2, the two statues make a trade. Statue 1 gets the triangle from 2, and Statue 2 gets the circle from 1. This will change the 3D objects based on the shapes the statues now hold. The original Statue 1 had a cone, which was a triangle and a circle. Original 2 had a prism, which was a triangle and a square. We gave Statue 2 a circle and removed the triangle, which means we now have a circle and a square, which creates a cylinder. We gave Statue 1...
I can't follow that. Like, with him talking about it, I can't follow it. I'm too visual. You're saying the words, and I'm hearing the words, and they sound right to me. I just can't follow it.
A triangle and remove the circle, which means we now have a triangle and another triangle making a pyramid. You have completed a dissection. Now, that was a random one, but it was just an example. So, let's get back to the actual fight. This time, we're going to use an example from real gameplay. Ignore me jumping into the hole at the start. I was intentionally trying to be placed in the normal realm so that I could get footage of this. In this real-world example, the call-out is triangle, circle, square, TCS. So, I need to eventually make a cylinder in the left, because it doesn't contain a triangle, a prism in the middle, because it doesn't contain a circle, and a cone on the right, because it doesn't contain a square.
Okay. That should make sense to most people if you've been listening this whole time. If the Shadow Realm people see triangle, circle, and a square, outside team has to build a 3D shape that doesn't contain that 2D shape on each statue. Because what's the goal? The goal is for each player to have all 2D shapes to go through the portal. Glass portal blocks players without all three 2D shapes. That's all we're doing. In order for outside to accomplish that, they have to build a 3D shape that doesn't contain the 2D shape. That's it. It's just how you get there, and the methodology is super confusing, but that's the end goal. So triangle on the first statue means no triangle on the first statue. Triangle on the first statue on the inside, no triangle on the first statue on the outside, which is a cylinder. That's it. If you remember what your goal is, the methodology to get there can make more sense.
Great. I know where I need to go. I just need to do the mechanics now. So we can start anywhere we want. The first shape I see is a circle, so I decide to run with it. We know that Statue 2 is the circle statue, and therefore we want to have a 3D object that contains no circles in it in that statue. So I place the circle into Statue 2.
It's a cone. Look, it's a cone meaning it has a circle and a triangle. He's going to rip that circle out of there, buddy, because that's what we want. We don't want a circle in the middle.
To trade with another statue. The statue currently contains a cone, which is triangle circle. I'm removing the circle, so then it'll just be a triangle. And so now I want to add a square to it to make the object that I actually...
So he donked, I didn't see what was the shape? Oh, it's a cylinder, which is a square and a circle. So he's going to take the square of the cylinder. You may be wondering, how does a cylinder have a square? Okay, if you were to take this cylinder and like cut it right here and lay that bitch out flat, what would the shape be? It'd be a square. And what are the caps? The end caps are 2 circles. But if you cut down the middle there and lay it flat, it's a square, or technically a rectangle, whatever. It's a video game. It's a square. Okay, so he's taking the square out of the cylinder and replacing the circle of the cone with a square, making that square triangle, which is prism, and making this, what did he move? Square, circle, circle. Oh, he's gonna make this a sphere because he's adding an extra circle to this one. The sphere is 2 circles. Not really, but whatever. It's a video game, okay? A sphere is 2 circles. So he moved that circle from cone into here, made it a sphere.
And so now I want to add a square to it to make the object that I actually need. I see a square that a knight dropped.
So see, now it's a sphere. See the sphere over there? It's 2 circles. So right's good. Right does it. Oh no, right has a circle. Okay, so he needs to get that circle. Oh no, sorry, I messed up. His right statue is square. So right is good. It has no squares in it. Oh wait.
So I pick it up and see that statue 3's 3D object contains a square. So I drop the square into statue 3. Circle and square trade. Statue 2 is ready to go. Statue 1 and 3 still need some work, but it's only going to take 1 more trade to fix them.
So left, you can know what left is if we have a circle. No, wait, what's in the middle
There's
now?
a quick interruption as the witness tries to final shape my friends, but we fix that and move on to the second dissection.
Must be a square and a...
So,
oh,
we
it's 2
know
prisms.
that statue 2 is correct, which means we only need to interact with statues 1 and 3. I know
if right is a sphere, then the only thing left are 2 squares and 2 triangles, meaning they must have either 2 pyramids and 2 cubes, or 1 pyramid, 1 cube, or 2 triangular prisms. A square and a triangle. So he has 2 triangular prisms.
that we still have a triangle in statue 1, which we need to get rid of. And we have 2 circles in statue 3 because we have a sphere, one of which needs to be purged. I grab a triangle and I dump it in statue 1. I grab a circle and I dump it in statue 3. And we get the nice sound effect that tells us we did it correctly. Simple as that.
So that's confusing, right? I mean, I get it. Once you start like pointing and moving, it gets confusing. That's why we're gonna eventually walk through this little prototype here and just move stuff as we talk about it, so you can always visually see what's going on. Because the problem with like this is like it's just words and it just goes over like my head. Like I can't grasp it.
One more part to...
It's good to watch this though and like create like little like hints in your brain, little shells where the info can go. But until you actually get in there and do it, it's not going to click for you. But once you do it and it clicks, you'll go back and go, oh, he said the triangle doesn't go there. Oh, I get it. But if you don't do this and you show up to it, you're like, I'm dumb.
Complete. Shortly after the regrouping, unstoppable ogres will spawn. A few more enemies will spawn after that. Just get rid of them. Then the witness will kill 5 players. Before that happens, everyone should spread out a little bit. Do not stack up.
I don't have shelves, by the way, in my brain. I have like filing cabinets. I don't have those. I have files just scattered over the floor.
The only alive player needs to pick up someone's ghost and put it into the correct stack.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He's hacking again, bro. I told him to stop uploading hacked content.
Only the dead can see which player goes where, and you can only see one person. So start making callouts for what ghost goes where. Everyone needs to make some kind of a call here because you only have 1 minute to do this, otherwise it's a wipe. This is not the time to let other people do callouts. Also, the only person left alive should wait to pick up a ghost until you know the position of that player. Do not just pick up someone's ghost and then ask where it goes. I think that is the best I can possibly explain this fight. It's a bit overwhelming to hear, but once you get the logic down for the normal realm, you can do it incredibly quickly and it actually becomes somewhat routine. Note that most teams are probably just going to end up having 1 or 2 people doing the entire thing in a given rotation of the encounter, but feel free to make callouts as you see fit to have other players help out.
But 3 people get teleported to be alone. They have to communicate what they have, and then like a raid Sherpa can do all the math in their head and be like, okay, the fewest moves is square to 2, triangle to 3, we're done. Outside, move square to 3, and then move circle to 1, we're done. And people will be like, okay. But like people don't have that muscle memory down yet, but eventually they'll be there.
All it takes is a call out.
Checkmate in 4 moves.
Somebody
easy.
grab triangle and put it in the right side statue. Something like that. Multiple people need to know the normal realm role, while everyone needs to know what to do in the shadow realm, since anyone can be teleported there at any time. If anyone dies in the shadow realm, they are replaced, which might cause some confusion. So the person that died should bring the new player up to speed. Repeat this process 2 more times to move on to the final encounter, the witness.
So, before we go on, let's go back to his example of, Shadow Realm calls TCS.
Object contains a square.
Okay, so Shadow Realm calls TCS. Here we go. Here's my little, prototype. So on the left, we have the people who are teleported inside and alone. Here's their shadow wall. Remember, this shows your inventory of shapes. The outside group, the shadow wall just shows all 3 2D shapes, circle, square, triangle, letting you know your knights will always drop all 3. So your goal is to get your teleported people who are trapped in the shadow realm through the glass portal. The glass wall portal will block you unless you have all 3 2D shapes. That's all we're doing. How do we do it? There are 9 total shapes. 9 total 2D shapes. So in his example, it was triangle left. Whee. So triangle is the left statue, okay? Circle is the middle statue. And square is the right statue. Now on the outside, you can't see that, but that's what it is. So we can take a triangle for left on the outside. Even though you can't see it, it's there. Only the inside can see it. Then we put a circle in middle, and then we put a square on the outside. What I'm going to tell you is not the methodology on how you get this done, because you can solve it 9,000 different ways, and some ways will be easier to others. What I'm here to show you is what is the goal, and to visualize the goal, because I think that makes it click for a lot of people. if you recognize what the goal is, then the methodologies, how to get there, will be less confusing or annoying. The thing to remember is there is only ever 9 2D shapes. 3 squares, 3 triangles, 3 circles. That's it. So, oh, this needs a repeat, dog. It's going to take longer than 3 minutes. So, his example doesn't show what the players on the inside get on the shadow wall, but you can just start making it up now. So let's assume from the left player's perspective, this is his shadow wall. Let's say he has a triangle and a square on his shadow wall. Let's just say middle has a circle. I'll actually put these above their heads. So these are what the statues have on their heads on the inside. And say his shadow wall is a circle and a square. And the right statue's shadow wall is a square and a circle. So you as the left player, you can't see all this crap. You only see you and your 2 2D shapes. What do you need to get to the portal? You need all 3 2D shapes. Your statue has a triangle. Your knights will drop a square and a triangle. So you need to get rid of this triangle. Well, circle has an extra circle, so he could give that one to you. You could give him triangle, and then you'd be done. Because now, that's it. You on the left have a circle, triangle, and a square. You're done. You're good. You're good to go. Middle has a circle, triangle, square. You're good to go. Good to go. And the right statue has a square on his head and has a triangle, circle. It's good to go. They can now walk through the glass portal. But wait! The outside statues aren't done yet. Now it gets complicated. To get to the portal, they need all 3 2D shapes. On the outside, there will be a random 3D object on their heads. Now, there are limitations to which one of these 3D shapes are on their heads. Like, the game doesn't let... Like, there is only ever 9 2D shapes. So, if... Like, say this one... Oops. So, Prism... Let's just say Prism's on his head. And let's say Cone is on his head. And let's say Cylinder is on his head. So we won't use any of the doubled up ones yet, because that gets a little weird. What's the rule? Each player needs all 3 2D shapes to go through the portal. So left has 2 triangles, middle has 2 circles, and right has 2 squares. So now we've got to start moving stuff around. So we can also use these 2D shapes over here to fill these out. So Prism is a square and a triangle, right? So you can put a square there and a triangle there. Actually, yeah, well, that's good enough. Then we have Cone, which is circle, triangle. And then for the Cylinder, circle, and square. Notice we have no 2D shapes left. These are all the shapes in play. You can only ever have 9 2D shapes. That's it. And now the mechanic is to the swippy swappies, the switches. Well, if triangle has if left has 2 triangles, got to get rid of that triangle. Who needs a triangle? Right side has 2 squares and a circle. If you swap a triangle with the square, you're still cooked. But right side is now good. Left side is a cube. Right side is now a second cone. Is that where I lose you? Then what swaps do you need to do? You lost 30 minutes ago. Come on, man. Right's good. Left and mid have 2 squares and 2 circles. So if we swap the square with the circle, now left has all 3 2D shapes. Mid has all 3 2D shapes. And what's the thing? What's the symbol above the head? It's going to be a square and a triangle. That's a prism. And left is going to be a circle and a square. That's a cylinder. Now look. Square, circle, triangle. All 3, all 3, all 3. Each player now has all 3 2D shapes. Now you can walk through the portal. How you get there? Hey, I'm not telling you how to do it. I'm just showing you what's going on. Now, I think the most confusing part, I think for a lot of people, is just the concept of a 3D shape having 2D shapes in it. I think that's what throws like a lot of people. Like, it just doesn't click. Like, honestly, it's not clear. Like, a sphere doesn't have 2 circles. A sphere is a 3D object with a single face that, if you were to lay flat, isn't a circle. Like, it's, I don't know what it looks like. I'm sure it's a shape. A cube does have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares. It's 6 squares, not 2 squares. What are you talking about? 6 squares. So it's this concept of converting 2D to 3D that you've got to like instill in your brain. Like, a cone, if you were to like take the bottom off a cone, it'd be a circle. But if you were to lay this wrapping around the cone flat, like, it would turn into what? I don't know what shape that would be, but in the game they call it a triangle. Pyramid, 3 triangles. If the triangle's a base, 3 triangle sides. So, and then for the prism, 3 squares, 2 triangles, cylinder, 2 circles on the top and bottom. And if you cut the cylinder open, lay it flat, it's a rectangle. So, you could look at it like the 3D object looked from 2 specific 2D views. So, like, if you look at a circle from this, if you look at a sphere from this side, it's a circle. If you look at a sphere from this side, it's also a circle. Sure. Like, the cylinder is like a square, but it's clearly a rectangle from the side. If you look at it from the other side, it's a circle. Like, sure, that's like a triangle from the side. Sure, whatever. Just memorize that. Memorize this. And then apply it to this concept of each player needs all 3 2D shapes. So move your shapes around inside so you have all 3. Remember, your statue has triangle, circle, square in this example. So the outside statue also has triangle, circle, square on the statue. And then you got to change the 3D shape so that it has all 3 2D shapes. Done. Link the image for chat. I downloaded it from a DM, so I don't have it. That's it. Each need only 3 2D shapes. All 3 2D shapes. There's only 3. Circles, triangle, square. Okay. Back to, I'm sure you got it all caught up, ready to go. Not all. There's only 3 2D shapes, so all 3 2D shapes. Circle, triangle, square. All unique 3 2D shapes. The ghost part? I mean, the ghost part's pretty easy. It's just put the ghost into the right statue. Only 1 rotation of this? You have to do it 3 times in a row. Whoa, Datto, where'd you go?
The Witness is where everything comes together while also introducing even more mechanics on top, including a wild damage phase. Team composition should bring some sort of a damage buff like Well or Ward, but Well will probably be better so you can heal up in between any potential damage taken. You will want to bring some kind of a precision weapon for damage or whatever the damage strategy will evolve into. Currently, Still Hunt is being used by Nighthawk hunters as they absolutely crush damage meters, while others are bringing things like Doomed Petitioner from last season or other linear fusions as the damage phase is quite mobile. So,
oh God, the wall. Not the wall of tests, bro. Whoa.
So being able to stop and start again will be very important. The raid exotic Euphony during Strand Surge was doing really good damage. Still not quite Nighthawk Still Hunt levels, but still really good. Even Microcosm, the kinetic heavy trace, was apparently cooking the Witness. Ultimately, what you use will depend on the active surge though. Having good ad clear on this encounter will also be very
raid
nice,
surges.
as Screebs will be everywhere, Weavers will be pulling you left
I guess
and
it
right,
changes things
and
up every
Chieftains
week,
will make
but
everything immune with totems. I used Commemoration and a solid primary, and it worked out just fine. Lucky Pants were disabled for the raid race, but those are back, and I imagine they're going to be pretty solid here too. Also, Titans, yeah, just throw on some Aeons and special ammo finishers and be an ammo bot for your team. Throw on Prismatic and just have some fun out there, alright?
what a
The goal of
macrocosm.
the Witness encounter is to remove the 6 buttons off of his shirt via the Glyph Breaker buff so that he gets so embarrassed that he just leaves. The first thing you'll notice in this encounter is that it's just pure insanity going on around you with no real clear path of where to start. Assign 3 people to be Glyph Breakers. They're going to be the people getting the buff, while the remaining 3 can be on ad clear. Yes,
Ad clear
it is
duty.
another one of these kinds of fights, and while you can have more than 3 people getting Glyph Breaker, it is just not really that nice.
That's why he joined us, so he could get B-roll. This is our raid from yesterday. Char, B, More, me, Jin, Butters. Violet for a little bit.
However, it is helpful
Eastwood.
to know what to do as an ad clear player in case
I thought he was just trying to help us. He wanted B-roll.
Often does. Let's talk about getting the Glyph Breaker buff. You may have seen these hands and symbols and whatnot throughout the raid. And you've been told, or now that I think about it, not told to dodge and avoid them, but like, you know, you should have figured that one out. Well, guess what? Now you have to stand in them. There are 2 strategies for handling Glyph Breaker. I'm simply going to tell you the one that my team used. I don't know if it's going to stand the test of time, but here it is. So, each one of these hands that appears actually has a spot on it that's vulnerable, their wrist. You can kind of see this bracelet looking thing.
Yeah, the bracelet. Shoots the bracelet in the correct buff. Damage numbers. Yes. Explosion. And it changes a color. And it has squares on it.
However, you can only shoot it if you are in the corresponding attack
Oh, that wasn't squares. What is...
it is casting. For example,
Circles?
the hand coming out of the ground is going to be spawning circle. It'll be this little highlighted area on the ground.
Circle,
Stepping into this circle will allow you to shoot the wrist of the hand that links with that particular attack.
Yeah, so like for like colorblind people, I wish there was like more clear shape on there. I think when it turns red, it has little squares on it, little like, but it's hard to see with like he turns right here, but it should be like little
And the
squares.
same goes for pyramid and
like up is circle, but he needs to go get square or red.
square, which is this super long beam that goes across a chunk of the arena. You can do this incredibly fast though, because the wrist does not require a lot of damage to get what you need out of it. A quick strafe and literally 1 or 2 shots will do. If you stay in the circle or any of the other attacks for that matter, you will eventually get a...
So that's a funny way to say square buff. Hexahedron. Square buff.
resonance from it after a short time. The other 2 hands are Pyramid, which comes out of the sky vertically, and Cube, or Hex, or Box, whatever you want to call it, comes out of the sky horizontally and does a...
Oh, that's too fast. Couldn't even see it.
Kamehameha looking attack. Pyramid will target players individually, which tends to make it the more annoying attack to keep track of. The Cube does this too, but it's much more forgiving about trying to get into position to deal with it. Essentially, what my team does is assign 1 player to 1 shape. In this example, I'm assigned to Pyramid, so my job is to find the Pyramid attack, step in it while shooting the Pyramid hand's wrist, and
Square! Oh, there's the squares.
if I do that right, the wrist will reveal one of 2 colors, red or
And
yellow,
shapes.
which correspond to the type of resonance I need to go get next. A wrist will never show its own color. In this case, Pyramid is green. The wrist is never going to show green if it's the Pyramid wrist. The wristband also has the shape of the thing that you need. Red is square, green is triangle, yellow is circle. They are always those, they never change. So shape or color, pick whichever you want to use, it doesn't matter. The other strat involves just people calling out what color the wristband is of all the different hands, and then people getting resonance based on those calls. Again, pick one or the other, whatever works for you. I like to be a bit more organized, so I liked assigning 1 shape to 1 person. Okay.
Yeah. Go to your wrist's buff. So if you're down hand triangle, stand in triangle buff, shoot it. It'll change a color to the buff that you need, red. Go get the red buff, come back, quickly hop in the triangle, real fast, shoot the wrist, because if you stand in the buff too long, it changes. I hate this encounter. It's too finicky. The buffs are across the map. The triangle is running all over the place. It's, ugh.
So I've shot the wrist of the Pyramid hand, and it is red. This means that in order to obtain the Glyph Breaker buff, I need to shoot the Pyramid wrist while I have the Hexahedron resonance. I get this by standing in the path of the attack that the Hex hand does. This attack will take a few seconds to charge up, and then it'll go off.
He missed.
Circle is probably the easiest to read because a circle will go from top to bottom, and then when it hits the bottom, it goes off. The Pyramid attack just looks more intense the longer it's around, and it's sort of the same for the Hex beam attack, but the telegraph isn't as intense. The risk comes from getting hit by the actual attack and potentially dying as a result, but you'll get a feel for how risky you can play with more experience in the fight.
It sucks.
So, now I have Hex resonance, I go back to the Pyramid attack, shoot the wrist again, and boom, I have my Glyph Breaker buff ready to go. But the difficulty in getting the Glyph Breaker buff at this stage is in making sure you shoot the wrist fast enough so that you don't overwrite the resonance buff that you just got, which is the one that you need. If you're too slow, you'll have the wrong resonance, and then you'll have to go overwrite that overwrite with the correct resonance again. And guess what? If you take too long between shooting the wrist the first time and the second time, it might despawn and then respawn, which might change the resonance buff you need to get Glyph Breaker from that wrist.
What did he just say? Complicated. The hand moves, you got to start all over. It's annoying.
Meanwhile, others are also collecting the Glyph Breaker buff through their own means. I like to go in groups of 3 to break glyphs, meaning 3 people would have the buff at the same time. We'd all go to the middle together and shoot all the glyphs on one side of the witness. This will spawn subjugators, but on normal mode, they are simply a means to some kind of power ammo through the use of Aeons, Cenotaph, or whatever you want. The reason we go to the middle is because when you shoot a glyph, it cleanses the resonance debuff away from any player in the middle platform, which is helpful in case your stacks are getting too high, or maybe you accidentally picked up resonance. Resonance is not used for anything else. In between the acquisition of 2 to 5 Glyph Breaker buffs, the Witness will test you. In front of the Witness will be 14 things. I don't know what these are, but they're things that you can shoot. And you need to make a shape. Either a triangle, a circle, it's really a diamond, but you know, it's a circle, or a square.
Looks good to me.
How do you know which shape to make? When this prompt shows up, it will be immediately after someone makes a Glyph Breaker buff. The shape you must make is based on the wrist that the player shot to create the Glyph Breaker buff in that moment. There will also be an audio cue. The hand will scream at you. So just listen to the scream and look to see where it's coming from. Anyway, if I'm shooting the wrist that corresponds with circle, I get Glyph Breaker and the Witness calls a test right away, you need to create a circle. Calling out when you get a glyph can be helpful because if 2 people glyph around the same time and you don't pay attention to the scream, you're not going to know which shape you need to make. Now, if you fail the test, you instantly wipe. If you succeed, the Witness will send out a wave attack that you must jump over to survive. Don't get fancy here, just jump. Listen for this sound to tell when you need to jump and not anything earlier. To tell when you need to jump and not anything for this sound to tell when you need to jump and not anything earlier. Meanwhile, everyone else is just slaying out, grabbing glyph buffs.
So here's the diagram I use. So if I shot the down hand, which makes the triangle buff, and got Glyph Breaker, down hand, triangle buff, Glyph Breaker, then he tests you, you need to make a triangle. And you do that by shooting any of the things not on the green line. If I shot the sideways hand that shoots out square and got Glyph Breaker, and then he tests you, I need to shoot anything not on the square. So everything in middle is the easiest one. It's always when someone does square and he tests you, like, oh, just shoot all the middle ones. Boom, done. If I shot up hand, who's making the bees and the circle, if I shot that wrist and got Glyph Breaker, we need to make a circle, or what is very clearly a square, yellow square on its side. We just got to shoot the ones not on the yellow line. Thumbs up.
And breaking glyphs. Once you break all 6, damage starts on the center platform, and this is where it gets intense. The Witness will be sending giant wave attacks at you when you're dealing damage, making it so half of the platform is hit with lethal damage if you eat the entire attack. The Witness will alternate between left and right, so if their first attack covers the left side of the room, move to the right, and then the next attack is going to be on the right, so you move to the left. He usually does the attack diagonally, so it's more like the front left corner or the back right corner, but everyone should be looking out for these attacks. Do not just rely on callouts. Usually it'll be a side attack, and then the whole platform, which requires a jump. However, sometimes he'll do the entire platform attack very quickly, another time he'll do it pretty slowly, and then another time he just won't do it at all. And which he decides is random, but it'll only happen once per damage phase. So if the first set of attacks has a quick jump needed, it won't be another quick jump until the next damage phase. In between sets of attacks, you'll get a small reprieve to do damage, but you should also be doing damage in between individual attacks if possible. However, the most important thing is staying alive here, even if it means you only do damage in the short reprieve moments. The Witness will do 3 sets of these attacks, followed by a 4th final attack after the 3rd reprieve, where he literally just smashes the plate with his hand. Obviously,
Slam.
you should leave before this happens. This process now repeats itself. When it comes to handling Final Stand, this is not a forgiving one. You need good damage in Final Stand. You will not be able to just plink away with a rocket sidearm for the win. It is better to get the Witness to close to Final Stand and then do another set of glyphs than it is to try to push for a Final Stand with little to no ammo. You basically get one set of attacks from the Witness, and that's it. He'll go immune after that, and it's over. Bring everything you have, make sure you're getting ammo, and come into every damage phase fully prepared. And with that, you have beaten the Witness and Salvation's Edge. Who knows the next time we're getting a new raid?
Yeah, you really, even in normal mode, I feel like you should probably edge the boss, because if you don't have enough heavy and supers to burst the boss, Final Stand is not, it's just so short. You can't go in there with like specials and Outbreak Prime.
But if this is the last one for a little while, it was certainly an entertaining one. Like the video if it helped. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.
Thanks for the raid guide, Datto! My favorite part was when he used enhancement prism and ice cream cone. That was pretty funny. I want to know his like Witness's animation moves to like telegraph the attacks, because like I still don't get it. Or when slow versus heavy or slow versus fast jump is. I don't understand that.
Moments. The Witness will do 3 sets of these attacks.
Yeah, that's 50-minute raid guy. What do you say? Like 30,000 words script. Second, dude, the fourth encounter was 1927 to 30. Yeah, 20 minutes long on a single encounter. Oh, so good. His eyes glow. Yeah, when he does the ground attack. But like, I'm trying to shoot him in the chest. I'm not looking at his eyes. I'm not making eye contact with the boss. First 3 encounters feel like a completely different raid. Well, so Bungie's been doing this thing lately where the encounter right before the boss is just a, hey, here's something completely different. Just like change things up, and like Macrocosm and Root, the planet boss, Verity, or the shapes, 3D shapes in this raid, Salvation's Edge.
Next time we're getting a new raid. But if this is the last one for a little while,
Master will be fun. Can't wait. Flawless will be even better.
Thank you very much.
Edging the boss, but don't make eye contact. Yeah. Anyway, that's Datto's Raid Guide video. We'll spam the link in chat like you haven't already watched it. Please watch the video. Pull the video right up. Pull the video up right now and click the like button. Okay, boom, like button. Also, don't forget to comment, because the algorithm loves comments. Man, how are you so good at explaining this stuff, my guy? And then that face, because I have no idea. But anyways, comment and like to increase, then let the algorithm know how good a video it is. And that is the end of the Leopard reaction video.